your peas. Finish your plate. Hurry up, your dinner's getting cold. Stop messing around and eat. Come on, just 2 more bites. I know you're not full yet. For many, these phrases are very recognizable. Perhaps as a child you heard them at the dinner table, or maybe as a parent you've said something similar to your own children. I sure remember being a kid stuck at the dinner table. There was one time in particular, it was a great meal and I had eaten most everything, but there was still a cold lump of spinach remaining on my plate. Try as they might, my parents could not convince me to eat it. So everyone else got up and went about their evening activities, and I stayed behind, full and bored and wanting to go out and play. To make matters worse, from where I sat, I could see right out the window at my friends playing in the last light of the summer sun. And I was stuck there until I choked down that soggy green mess. It was awful. And then fast forward a few years, as a young adult, I had a much younger brother, Alan. Alan was notoriously finicky, and mealtimes followed a similar pattern. We would all sit down with our plates of food. Alan would take a few timid bites, and then within minutes, all attention was focused on him and what he wasn't eating. We'd politely suggest he take another bite of this or that. We'd try and bribe him or reward him, until eventually, Alan fell upon the same fate that I had. He was punished for not eating, stuck at the table, night after night after night, sometimes for hours. I didn't even realize that the mealtime treatment I so hated as a child was exactly what I was doing to him. Today, I'm a pediatric dietitian, and a huge part of what I do is establish healthy eating habits and patterns for families with young children. Now, after working in the field for several years, I've noticed some trends among my appointments as children age. Around 6 months old, parents are so excited to offer their infants the first bites of solid foods, usually a baby food, fruit or vegetable puree, or infant cereal offered from a spoon. And as the infant's eating competency expands, they try all new kinds of flavors and textures. By the time they're 12 months, they're feeding themselves and they're eating most everything the rest of the family eats. 12 to 24 months, toddlers still enjoy being a part of the mealtime process, learning to use utensils. And then something happens in my appointments around 2 years old. Developmentally, we know 2-year-olds have a new sense of independence. And their growth slows down a little bit. They become busier in their world. And with the wide varieties of foods they've tried, they've developed some food preferences. So parents come in stressed and frustrated that their once open-minded eater is now picky. And they lament the time and energy they take in the kitchen preparing healthy, wholesome meals, only to have their child eat very little, or avoid certain components, or reject the meal altogether, maybe requesting something different. These parents don't know what to do. So they go back to when they were kids, and they do whatever they can to get their child to eat. Sometimes they physically feed them, or reward them for eating, or bribe them, or threaten, or punish. These parents describe mealtimes as battlefields. Parent versus child. And yet at the same time, the parents recognize that when they were children, they didn't like being stuck at the table, so full they can't take one more bite, but their parents insist. Or feeling shamed and embarrassed because they're not living up to their parents' expectations. Or sad and lonely because they were sent to their room for not eating. So if we've all had these unfortunate, uncomfortable experiences, why do we insist on passing these negative mealtime traditions down from generation to generation? It may have started out reasonable enough. During times of food scarcity, when you didn't know when your next meal would come around, it was important to eat what you had when you had it. But we live in a time of food abundance now. Our portion sizes are ever increasing. It is simply unnecessary to insist children eat everything we offer. But there's that concern. They need to eat if they're going to grow, and develop. And as a dietitian, I can confirm this. Yes, children need a certain amount of calories every day to run their bodily functions and to grow and thrive and learn and run and jump and play. And these calories can't just come from anywhere. They have to be a good mix of the macronutrients, carbohydrates, and proteins and fats, which are best if they're gotten from all 5 food groups: the healthy whole grains, and the lean proteins, and the low-fat dairy, and the fruits and vegetables, preferably in 5 colors every day. And children need to drink plenty of water and get physical activity and have regular meal and snack times, and all of this is great if you can just get the fork past their mouth. And what I find is parents are inundated with the what to feed their children, never really told how to feed them. And so with best intentions, we continue these coercive mealtime practices, not even recognizing that we might be doing more harm than good. In fact, almost 40% of children in the United States have some kind of adverse eating behavior or disordered eating habit. This can be a lot of things, but 2 of the most concerning are overeating and food aversions. Now, as humans, we are all built recognizing when we're hungry and when we're full. We see this very clearly with infants. Children continue to learn about these hunger and fullness signals. But if we insist that they finish their plate at every meal or always take one more bite, then that signal from their stomach to their brain telling them to stop eating is dulled. In a sense, we're changing their physiology so they can't recognize when to stop. This in turn leads to overeating, and overeating can lead to excess weight gain, and excess weight gain leads to, you guessed it, overweight and obesity, conditions all too prevalent among our youth. In fact, the Centers for Disease Control indicate that 1 in 5 school-age children is overweight and 1 in 6 obese, and it's more than just a weight issue because these children suffer from poor self-esteem, difficulty keeping up with friends, and poor body image. And the longer-term health implications are cardiovascular disease and diabetes. It's so important for us to allow our children to recognize what their bodies are telling them about the food they eat. Children on the other side of the spectrum can also develop food aversions. If they have consistent negative interactions with foods and at mealtime, then it can start to cause them stress and anxiety. They might avoid foods and be at risk of not getting enough nutrition to grow. In fact, children can develop post-eating stress disorder. This can happen usually when there's a very severe negative feeding incident. Perhaps a child was force-fed and had a choking or gagging incident as a result. Let's look at the bigger picture, because children are more than just a stomach to fill. They're growing socially, mentally, and emotionally as well. We have an opportunity at mealtime to think outside the plate and nourish all of these growth systems. What better opportunity than to build a child's social intelligence than at the dinner table? Talk to them about their day. Tell them about yours. Learn about their likes and their dislikes, who their friends are. It will help them thrive in their communication with others. And mealtime is a great opportunity to expand mental capacity. Food is a wonderful educational tool. You can talk about colors, numbers, shapes, sizes, textures. You can count and spell. You can talk about where food comes from or how to cook. Get kids in the kitchen, they love that. And finally, mealtime needs to be emotionally empowering. Children should not be broken down at mealtime. They should be empowered to learn about new foods, to learn about their bodies, to enjoy themselves, and to try new things. And the variety is important. Children really need to be exposed to fruits and vegetables and whole grains. The sad statistics are that most children under 5 just aren't exposed to enough. And the easiest way to encourage them to eat these foods is simply by eating them ourselves as parents and caregivers. Children use modeling to learn how to act in the world. And the same goes for what to eat. When they see parents and adults and older siblings and peers eating certain foods, with time, they'll learn that those foods are acceptable and they'll want to eat them themselves. Many years ago, the Ellen Satter Institute rejected the coercive feeding model and brought something friendlier to the table: the feeding relationship. And I use this feeding relationship practice with all of my clients, and most report great success. The feeding relationship consists of 2 parts: parent and child. And they follow a division of responsibility. The parent is responsible for what foods to serve and when and where to offer those foods. The child is responsible for what they put in their body and how much. It's so simple. Because if we, as parents, know that we're offering a healthy variety in a comfortable setting at an appropriate time, we can relax and let our kids fulfill their role. They get to choose what they want to eat and how much of it. And the mealtime dynamic totally shifts. It's no longer a battlefield. Nobody wants that. It's a loving, wholesome environment, nourishing child, body, mind, and soul. Truly nourishing beyond nutrition. And there's no more, eat your peas, finish your plate, and hurry up. Instead, you hear, I care about you. How was your day? You are so smart. I love you.